Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to give my review of AEW's Double or Nothing. Starting off the evening, we go into the pre-show. Now, usually I don't cover the pre-show, but I've heard and saw that there was a little bit of importance to that pre-show, so I want to talk to you guys about it. Tony Khan comes out to the stage. He is walking out to the stage with none other than Martha Hart. They are being interviewed by Renee Paquette. Renee was talking to Tony Khan and Martha about the possibility of bringing back the Owen Hart Cup tournament. And it looks like that is going to happen. Tony Khan announces that AEW will be bringing back the Owen Hart Cup tournament this year. And there's a little stipulation with this year's tournament. A lot different than the previous tournaments that AEW has held for the Owen Hart Cup tournament. And Tony Khan announces that the winners of both the men and women's tournaments will receive a title opportunity at All In this year. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal for AEW. It's a huge deal for Owen Hart and his family, as well as the talent that's on AEW currently. This is a big deal for abundance of reasons. Number one, the tournaments that AEW puts together, especially with the Owen Hart Cup tournament and the tournaments they previously had put on, have been absolute bangers. And to me, having a little bit more importance into the Owen Hart Cup tournament, where the winners of both the men and women's tournament get an opportunity at a title shot at All In, this is a big deal. It's a big deal for the roster. It's a big deal for AEW because obviously it's going to get more eyes on the product and it's a little bit more importance to the tournament. So to me, it's a must-win for the men and women that are a part of this tournament because they get an opportunity for a title shot at All In. So it's a win-win. It gets more eyes on the product for AEW and it benefits the roster immensely. So I'm all for this. I think it was a great deal for Tony Khan to announce this, where the winners of these tournaments will get a title opportunity at All In this year. It's a big deal. I'm definitely looking forward to this year's Owen Hart Cup tournament. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of AEW's Double or Nothing. It is Roderick Strong defending the international title against Will Ospreay. I thought this was a great match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Ospreay and Strong, with Ospreay attacking the Kingdom ringside. Ospreay then was keeping the pace of the match. The Kingdom ended up attacking Ospreay, which there's a part in that attack where Ospreay kind of landed pretty hard on the outside. I feel like he fell on his head from the attack from Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. Ospreay and Strong were both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Ospreay then hits a handspring Pele kick on Strong. Wardlow then attacks Ospreay with the referee being distracted. Ospreay then hits a springboard forearm as well as an enziguri. Strong then applies a half crab on Ospreay, but the hold is broken. Strong then applies a Texas cloverleaf. The hold is broken again. Strong then hits a superplex into a backbreaker on Ospreay that looked absolutely brutal. Strong then goes for a high boot, but Ospreay counters it into a devastating powerbomb. Ospreay then hits an Oz cutter on Strong. Don Callis then tells Ospreay to go for the Tyler driver. Ospreay shaking his head no. Strong then hits an angle slam on Ospreay. Ospreay then gets up, hits a hidden blade on Roderick Strong, as well as his signature Storm Chaser, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and new international champion is Will Ospreay. A couple things I want to talk about with this matchup, man, quickly, is number one, this was a great match, like I mentioned earlier, and I have a lot of high praise for Ospreay. I know some of y'all were like, man, you're a really big fan of Ospreay. It's not that. Ospreay is a generational talent, number one, and I am a fan of Ospreay, but Ospreay, the matches he's put on with AEW, man, have been absolutely awesome. You know, one of the biggest matches I've seen Ospreay in since he's, officially been with AEW, and one of my favorite matches is a match that he had with Takeshita. It was, him showcasing his skills now that he's, signed with AEW, and it was a phenomenal match, possible candidate for match of the year. And to me, Ospreay, in my opinion, will eventually be the ace of AEW. He's still young. He still has a lot of time on his belt as far as being a professional wrestler. And the ability that Ospreay has in the ring is incredible. So to me, it was almost a shoo-in for me to believe that Strong was going to lose that belt and Ospreay was going to walk out as new international champion. Because right now, Strong's run with the international championship meant absolutely nothing. In my honest opinion, he wasn't doing a damn thing with that belt. And to me, the Undisputed Kingdom, that whole project that Tony Khan put together, or Adam Cole put together, it's a dead issue for multiple reasons. The Undisputed Kingdom with Wardlow and Strong and Bennett and Taven, they're not doing shit, in my honest opinion. That might be a hot take for a lot of people. And some people might say, well, that's maybe the reason why they're not that good is because they don't have Adam Cole. That's bullshit, in my honest opinion. You can't just rely on Adam Cole, one person, to bring storyline into Undisputed Kingdom. It's absolutely ridiculous. If I was Undisputed Kingdom, I would be the biggest heel stable in AEW and be attacking the big wigs that are a part of AEW. The main talent guys. Guys like Bryan Danielson, guys like Jon Moxley, guys like Kenny Omega, guys like Claudio Castagnoli, Eddie Kingston, and make your presence known and let the roster know that you're taking over. And we didn't get that from Undisputed Kingdom. And to me, like I said, you can't just put all that on Adam Cole. You know, that's just my opinion. I think as far as Undisputed Kingdom, they need to go back and hit the reset button and see what they want to do moving forward as the Undisputed Kingdom, or just go their separate ways as it is. But moving on from that, great segue. We have an Adam Cole segment. Adam Cole's music hits. He comes down to the ring. Crowd goes crazy. Cole then mocks the crowd. Cole then brings out the Devil's Mask. The last time we saw the Devil's Mask, Adam Cole was wearing it when he attacked MJF. The lights go out, and it looks like it's on the Titantron. It's shown as MJF's house. There's pictures on the wall of MJF, and then there's MJF's scarf and his jacket hanging up in this room. And then all of a sudden, MJF's music hits. He comes down to the ring. He attacks Adam Cole. MJF then grabs a microphone and he mocks Cole. MJF says that he is the greatest wrestler of all time, a generational talent. MJF then mocks New Japan Pro Wrestling as well as WWE and Vince McMahon. MJF then says that MJF made MJF. He didn't have to go somewhere to create his own character or create how he is as a wrestler. MJF shows a tattoo. He lifts up his right pants leg, and I believe it was on his lower right leg or his ankle. He had a tattoo, man, and the tattoo said, bet on yourself, double or nothing. And after he mentioned that, he said a lot of people were speculating if he was going to go to WWE or his contract situation. And MJF says himself, quote unquote, that he's not going anywhere. This was a big deal. This was a big moment of Double or Nothing. This was a huge deal. It's great to see MJF back in the swing of things for AEW. He's been sorely missed. And I think it's great to see him back. I think AEW was struggling without MJF. I think MJF coming back into the fold again with, AEW, I mean, sky's the limit for MJF. And to be honest with you, I mean, they needed him, man. Not only for just ratings, but for storylines and great matches, great moments. MJF's going to give you that whether you like it or not. So to see him come back into the fold with AEW, it's definitely something that AEW missed, as well as the fans, myself included. He was sorely missed, so it's great to see him back in AEW. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Bullet Club Gold defending the Trios titles against Death Triangle. I thought it was a decent match, man. It was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Bullet Club Gold and Death Triangle, with Death Triangle keeping the pace of the match. Jay White then lands devastating chops on Pac. Penta then hits a Canadian Destroyer, but then out of nowhere, Juice attacks Pac, which allows Jay White to hit his signature Blade Runner, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match and still Trios champions are the Bullet Club Gold. Hats off to Bullet Club Gold for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the AEW Women's title. It is Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's title against Serena Deeb. I thought it was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Deeb and Storm, with Storm keeping the pace of the match. Deeb then hits a net breaker on the outside on Storm. Storm gets up, hits a code breaker on Deeb. Deeb then applies a triangle, but the hold is broken. Toni then applies a Texas Cloverleaf on Deeb, but the hold is broken. Toni and Deeb then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Deeb applying a half crab on Toni Storm, but the hold is broken. Storm then hits a Storm Zero for a near fall, but then Storm hits an Avalanche Storm Zero on Deeb, pins her for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still AEW Women's Champion is Toni Storm. A couple things I want to say about this match, man. Number one, do I think it was the greatest women's match I've ever seen in AEW? No. To me, and I mentioned this so many times in the past, man, that I sound like a broken record. The creative department, if there is one, it is non-existent, definitely, for the women's roster on AEW. There's no storylines, there's no investment. It's just not there. And with all due respect to both Toni Storm and Serena Deeb, I'm a big fan of Toni Storm and what she's done. I've said it countless times that the timeless Toni Storm character is one of the best, if not the best character AEW has put together. Hands down. Toni Storm is awesome from top to bottom. She checks off all the boards. Absolutely. But Serena Deeb, this is where the rankings really fall into play. And it's the same way I feel about Mercedes Moné's match with Willow, which I will get into later, because I thought the match was awful. Might be a hot take, but I thought the match was awful. The rankings mean absolute shit for AEW. It doesn't mean a damn thing. I think the rankings are a flawed system, and obviously they don't follow the rankings that they've created for their own show. The ranking system is flawed. With that being said, Serena Deeb has to go back in the line. I understand her having that lengthy time off and dealing with a lot of medical issues, and I'm glad that she's back. I'm glad she's healthy. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Serena Deeb's not a great wrestler. I'm not going to sit here and say that. But they were pushing Serena Deeb to the moon leading up to a match with Toni Storm. Tony Khan, strapped the rocket ship to Serena Deeb and was like, you know what, we're going to have you go up against Toni Storm for the AEW Women's title. And there's no storyline, there's no build. So good luck. And there wasn't, man. I mean, towards the last, 2 weeks, we had, a little bit of banter back and forth between Deeb and Storm, which it meant nothing. And to me, Deeb, I'm going to tell people this too. Whether it's matches she had on Ring of Honor and stuff, that Ring of Honor shit doesn't count. It doesn't. It's what you do on Dynamite and what you do on Collision. And to me, Deeb just didn't do enough for me to, warrant her a title opportunity against Toni Storm. I feel like Serena Deeb was slotted into that position against Toni Storm because they literally had nobody else. Because Toni Storm is going through that women's division and the top talent that is the women's roster in AEW. They have nobody else. There's no Britt Baker. There's no Jamie Hayter. She already beat Thunder Rosa. She beat Deonna Purrazzo. There's really nobody else left, or nobody that AEW is building right now on that women's roster that could go up against a powerhouse like Toni Storm. Now, there are some names that are hanging out in the woods that are trying to make a name for themselves. I know a lot of people, and I've been told this many times. I know AEW had signed Megan Bayne, and I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, she's a top talent. She's great on the indies and stuff like that." I haven't seen Megan Bayne in a match or know a lot about Megan Bayne, but a lot of people told me she's a really good wrestler, and why is she not being showcased on Dynamite or Collision? I don't know. The other big name that's floating out there so what I've been told had signed a contract with AEW is Camille. And Camille, I've watched Camille wrestle with her time when she was in NWA and working with Billy Corgan and being a part of NWA Power. She was also their former NWA Women's Champion, and she held that belt for quite a while. And to me, Camille is a powerhouse. To me, Camille could be another Jade Cargill. And to me, my thing is, Tony Khan, you can't sign these people and then keep them on the shelf, man. You've got to put them in a storyline and bring them to the forefront. Camille would have been a perfect contender against Toni Storm. Even if it was a one-off and she came in and just wrecked Toni Storm, so be it. Or came after Toni Storm won that match, she came out and was like, you know what, I'm the next challenger for your belt. Why can't we get that? Or some video packages making, coming soon to AEW, Camille. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, the women's roster is hurting. And they have talent. They got great talent. But the reason why I'm saying they're hurting is because there's no storylines wrapped around that women's roster. Nothing. Nothing for the fans to get invested in. And it's an absolute shame. Moving on from that, though, we go into our next match of the night. It's a grudge match. It is Orange Cassidy versus Trent Beretta. The one interesting thing I'll say about this matchup is that Orange Cassidy, when he came out to the ring, he didn't come out to the entrance music that we've all heard of now. He actually came out to the ring with his old entrance music, which I thought was a pretty cool aspect of the match. The match itself was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Cassidy and Trent Beretta, with Cassidy keeping the pace of the match. Trent lands multiple forearms on Cassidy. Trent then hits a pile driver off the apron on Cassidy. Orange then gets up, hits a breach break on the outside on Trent Beretta. Trent then hits a half and half on Orange Cassidy, but Orange ultimately hits a roll-up on Trent Beretta, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Orange Cassidy. Hats off to Orange Cassidy for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a triple threat match for the FTW title. It is Chris Jericho defending the FTW title against Shibata and Hook. I thought it was an okay matchup, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Jericho, Shibata, and Hook. Jericho and Shibata both exchanged in the middle of the ring, with Hook hitting a T-bone suplex in the middle of the ring. Shibata then hits a Death Valley driver off the top. Jericho then hits a code breaker. Hook then applies a red rum. Big Bill then comes out to the ring to attack Hook. Hook then hits a T-bone suplex off the apron on Big Bill through a table to the outside. Jericho then applies the walls of Jericho, but the hold is broken. Shibata then applies a figure 4 on Jericho. A masked person comes out to the ring. They attack Hook and Shibata, and that person wearing the mask was none other than Brian Keith. Brian Keith was helping out Jericho, which allowed Jericho to hit a Judas effect, pins for the 3, And your winner of the match and still FTW champion is Chris Jericho. Couple things I want to talk about this, man, and briefly. Number one, again, this match was awful. It was a shitty match. The FTW title, that concept has been dead for quite a while. It's a title that's not needed for AEW, and I've said that multiple times. But I will say this, and I'll keep saying this until they do something else or they figure it out. The Jericho experience is over. I hate to tell you guys that. If you guys are fans of Jericho, the experience is over. The whole Jericho run that he had with AEW is done. It is awful at this point, man, and it's nauseating to watch. Jericho, the one thing I will say about Jericho that I do respect is the fact that Jericho, on countless times and countless measures, he always tries to reinvent himself and make himself, one of the top draws in professional wrestling. Whether he's in WWE or whether he's in AEW, New Japan, he always tries to reinvent himself to be a top guy or a top draw from one of those companies. And I give Jericho credit on that. But I feel like at this juncture in Jericho's career, at this time, the well has run dry. Jericho is literally running out of options. There's nothing else left for Jericho to do in AEW than what he's doing right now. And what he's doing right now is literally not working. So much so that every time that Jericho comes out to a Dynamite or a Collision to wrestle, the fans are yelling and screaming to say, you know what, retire or go home. There's nothing else more for Jericho to do in AEW. The well has run dry. And, I know Jericho, I want to enhance the younger talent. Well, with all due respect, you try to do that with Hook, and I feel like Hook was a little bit more over than Jericho was at the time that Jericho was trying to help Hook. Hook was already self-made, and he did that for himself. So I feel like, and he did that solely off the match that, for what I remember, when Hook had a matchup against Samoa Joe, when Joe defended that belt that he had at the time, the AEW World Championship, against Hook. And after that night, Hook made himself into a top guy for AEW. This was well before Jericho came along and was like, hey, I'll help you out and all this. So, to me, Jericho and what he's doing in AEW, the well's running dry. And I don't know whether he's going to be on commentary or something, but he needs to do something else. Because the well has run dry. And to be honest with you, the shit's getting old, man. It's getting old. It's getting nauseating. It's getting boring. And do I think Jericho's a great wrestler? Yes, I do. Do I think what he's doing right now is above Jericho? No, because there's nothing else left for Jericho to do. Okay, yeah, he can go back to WWE, but what the hell is he going to do? Nothing. I think the Jericho experience is coming to an end. And I think people need to start realizing that. I think AEW and Tony Khan also need to realize that the well is running dry for Jericho, and they need to try to figure out what else they can do with Chris Jericho, because honestly, it's not working anymore. But moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Is an IWGP title eliminator matchup. It is Jon Moxley versus Takeshita. I thought this was a great match, man. It was a great showing from Moxley and Takeshita, back and forth matchup. Takeshita was keeping the pace of the match. Takeshita then hits a brainbuster on Moxley. Takeshita and Moxley both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Moxley hitting a cutter on Takeshita in the middle of the ring. Moxley then hits a paradigm shift. Takeshita then hits a running knee on Moxley for a near fall. Takeshita then hits a Death Rider on Jon Moxley for a near fall. Takeshita then throws a chair into the ring. Moxley then hits a foot stomp on Takeshita using the chair, which allowed Moxley to hit a Death Rider of his own on Takeshita, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Jon Moxley. Hats off to Jon Moxley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. In my honest opinion, probably one of the matches, if not the match of the night for Double or Nothing. It is Adam Copeland defending the TNT title against Malachi Black in a barbed wire steel cage match. Number one, Copeland's entrance was absolutely awesome. Had a lot of resemblance to the Brood. Even the Titantron said the Brood on the Titantron, which I thought was absolutely cool. The match itself, it was a great match. It was a back and forth matchup between Copeland and Malachi Black. Copeland then was hitting a Liger Bomb on Malachi Black. Copeland then hits an Impaler on Black as well. Malachi Black then attacks Adam with a barbed wire bat. Copeland then hits Malachi with the barbed wire bat as well. Malachi Black then hits a powerbomb through a table on Adam Copeland. Copeland then gets up, hits a spear on Malachi Black for a near fall. Adam then hits a pile driver on Malachi Black. Copeland then wraps Malachi with barbed wire while Malachi's laying on the table. Adam then hits an elbow drop, or tries to hit an elbow drop off the top of the cage through a table. Adam then goes for a spear, but Malachi counters it into a fade with a fade to black. Malachi then kicks Adam. Adam flies out through the cage door. He's on the outside of the steel cage. Copeland then gets up, hits a spear quickly on Malachi Black. The House of Black come out to the ring. House of Black looked like they were going to side with Adam Cole, but ended up turning on Adam Cole and attacking him. Malachi Black was wearing Adam Copeland's wedding ring. Then all of a sudden, red and black lights start flashing in the middle of the ring, and then the ring. Well, the way the lights were flashing, I believe it was Brody King that was attacked from underneath the ring. Well, it was Gangrel who was coming up through the ring, attacked Brody King, and then Gangrel pretty much helped attack House of Black, which allowed Adam Copeland to hit a spear and apply a submission hold on Malachi Black using the barbed wire. And your winner of the match is Adam Copeland. Hats off to Adam Copeland for getting the win in this matchup. A couple things I want to say about this matchup, man. Number one, like I told you guys earlier, this to me was match of the night. The storyline between Adam Copeland and Malachi Black I thought was really good. And I thought the final chapter of that with this matchup at Double or Nothing was great. Seeing Adam Copeland come out to the old the Brood setup with him coming up through the stage, and the Titantron having the name The Brood on it. I thought it was great, and seeing Copeland reunite with Gangrel and Gangrel helping out Copeland, it was awesome. But I will say this, and what I found out, and you guys probably know this by now, the spot in that match where Adam Copeland had climbed up the steel cage, jumped off the cage, and was trying to attempt an elbow drop, but it didn't really go that way. It looked like Adam Copeland landed on his feet, pretty much 15 feet in the air, and came down on that table on Malachi Black. Well, with the way that Copeland landed, unfortunately, Adam Copeland's going to be out with injury for the next 4 to 6 months with a fractured tibia from that spot that he had with Malachi Black, which is very unfortunate. And it looks like he will relinquish the TNT title as well. And it's one of those things where it's an absolute damn shame, man, because to me, Copeland has had his best run in AEW than he did the past couple of years he was with WWE. He looks like he's having fun, looks like he's having a great time. He's doing a hell of a job with that TNT title. He was on a great run, and just that one spot in that match is going to put him on the shelf for the next 4 to 6 months, and unfortunately he will miss Forbidden Door and possibly All In. And, All In might be a stretch as well, so it's unfortunate, man. Copeland, he's been on one hell of a run with the TNT title, like I mentioned earlier, and, it's a shame, man, because it looks like he's legitimately having fun. I wanted to see where he was going to go next with this whole Brood thing, if he was going to make his own stable, because it looks like Copeland owns the likeness rights to the Brood and stuff like that. So it was just unfortunate, man, with the injury and stuff like that. I really wanted to see what was going to happen next after the fallout between Malachi Black and Adam Copeland, and it's just unfortunate, man, with him being injured and having that fractured tibia. He's going to be out and be on the shelf for the next 4 to 6 months with a fractured tibia. So it's an absolute shame, and I hope a speedy recovery from Copeland, and hopefully he comes back, and he will come back and once again become TNT champion for AEW. So I definitely expect him back, and hopefully, like I said, man, everything works out for Adam Copeland. He comes back, and he stays healthy, man. So again, look forward to when Adam Copeland comes back to AEW. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the TBS title. It is Willow Nightingale defending the TBS title against Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné actually makes her AEW in-ring debut after like 2.5 months. The match itself, it was a decent match, man. It was a back-and-forth match between Nightingale and Moné. Nightingale was keeping the pace of the match. Nightingale then hits a powerbomb on the apron on Moné. Moné then hits a code breaker on Willow. Willow then hits a Death Valley driver on Moné. Moné then gets up, hits a Meteora on Willow Nightingale. Moné then attacks Chris Statlander. Willow then hits a powerbomb for a near fall. Moné then applies a submission hold, but the hold is broken. Moné then hits a Money Maker on Willow, pins her for the 3, and your winner of the match and new TBS champion is Mercedes Moné. After the match, Chris Statlander walks Willow up the ramp, but then quickly throws Willow right down on the ramp, pretty much staring down Willow Nightingale, and it looks like Chris Statlander is turning heel with the help of Stokely Hathaway. Couple of things I want to say about this match, man. Number one, let's talk about the match. I'll talk about Chris Statlander in a second. This might be a hot take for a lot of people, and it's probably going to piss a lot of people off, but I'm going to be honest, man. I'm going to keep it a buck with y'all. I thought the match was shit, to be honest with you, and I know that's probably going to make a lot of people aggravated, but I'm not going to see. I'm going to tell y'all how I feel and tell you the truth. I ain't going to lie to y'all. I thought the match was shit. I thought the match, it was not there. And I know some people were like, oh, well, Mercedes was injured and she was hurt. That's the problem. We don't even know what the hell was going on when Tony Khan brought in Mercedes Moné. We don't know if she had a full bill of health and she was cleared to go. My thoughts process was the fact that she was cleared to wrestle and she was ready to wrestle when she got to AEW. To me, that wasn't the case. And if it was, then why did she wrestle a damn match? And to me, again, the rankings mean absolute shit considering the fact that Mercedes Moné got an automatic title opportunity against Willow when she hasn't even had a single damn match in AEW. So again, the AEW ranking system is bullshit. Second, the reason why Mercedes got this damn match against Willow is because the name of Mercedes Moné and how much of a star Moné is. That's the reason why she got this matchup. People are like, oh, well, what about the storyline? What storyline? What, the fact that she injured herself in a match against Willow in New Japan Strong? Okay. But that's all you have. Nobody knew what Mercedes was going to do leading up to that match. And people were saying, oh, Mercedes was carrying that match against Willow. Bullshit. Willow Nightingale was carrying that match, the entire match against Mercedes Moné. Moné was getting her ass kicked against Willow. Hands down. So to me, and that's the thing, man. I told you guys when it pertained to Mercedes Moné that the well was going to run dry because she wasn't doing a damn thing. You got tired of hearing the promos and the promos and the promos. And we haven't seen her in the ring yet. And she got in that ring and she looked sloppy. A lot of the things, Willow was carrying the match. In my honest opinion, Willow was carrying that match for Mercedes Moné. Hands down. Is Mercedes a household name? Yes. Is she one of the best wrestlers, female wrestlers in the world? Yes. But that night at Double or Nothing, no. Willow was carrying that match. And to be honest with you, I know why they pulled the trigger on getting Mercedes Moné the championship, because it's a household name for AEW. Absolutely. But to me, the match was awful. I think Mercedes Moné needs more time. Hopefully, we're not going to get a long layoff from Mercedes to do anything with that belt. And hopefully, we're not waiting until, we're going to wait until the end of the month at Forbidden Door for her to defend that. That would be complete bullshit. And that, to me, would be a big, big problem with AEW. Absolutely. But, like I said, it's a hot take, but I thought the match was awful between Willow and Mercedes. And I just wasn't a big fan of it, man. I need to see more from Mercedes. Hopefully this is not another layoff where, okay, she won the belt, but we're not going to see her wrestle again for another pay-per-view, and she's only going to wrestle on pay-per-views. I'm not a big fan if that were to be the case. And I just feel like that whole situation with Mercedes and AEW and Tony Khan, something's going on, because whether we don't know if she was 100% cleared or not when she showed up in Boston at the TD Garden. We have no idea. They kept it under wraps. But my thing is, if she had a full bill of health and she was ready to go, why didn't we wait all the way until Double or Nothing? Literally, 2 months after she had debuted at the TD Garden in April? Or, I'm sorry, was it March? Yeah, March. 2 months later, she has her first match in AEW in the ring. The Reiki system is flawed, and to me, I'm sorry, Willow carried that match, and I thought the match was not that great, in my honest opinion. One of the biggest things I took away from that match was what Chris Statlander did. When Statlander turned her back on her best friend, Willow, and attacked Willow to set up a storyline between Willow and Chris Statlander. And to be honest with you, it was about time. I'm a big Statlander fan. I think what Statlander's done in AEW has been phenomenal. Obviously, one of the biggest things she did in AEW was defeating Jade Cargill and becoming the new TBS champion, and defeating pretty much ending the undefeated streak of Jade Cargill. It was one of the best things Statlander did in her career in AEW, and she's going to have countless more moments and countless more memories in AEW. Double or Nothing, that was a memory. That was not a memory, but that was a moment for her to turn heel. When the entire time she's been with AEW, she's been a babyface. Obviously, she was working with Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor. So to see her turn heel and be working with Stokely Hathaway, this is going to be a whole different Chris Statlander that we've never seen before. A more edgier Statlander, a more powerhouse Statlander that we really haven't seen the full potential, I think, of Chris Statlander. So I'm definitely excited for that. And I'm definitely excited for a possible matchup here between Statlander and Willow. Hopefully happening and hopefully soon, to be honest with you, because I think the match is going to be an absolute banger between Statlander and Willow Nightingale. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the AEW World Championship. It is Swerve defending the AEW title against Christian Cage. Number one, I thought Swerve entrance was awesome. I thought the entrance was awesome. Obviously having Prince Nana back it's a great addition to Swerve. But But, the entrance, the way that he came out to the ring, he was dressed as one of the guys from the Warriors movie, I thought was awesome. It was definitely a cool moment. Classic movie, by the way. But him coming out to the ring with the new attire and, paying homage to the Warriors movie, I thought was absolutely awesome. The match itself was a really good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Swerve and Christian Cage, with Swerve and Christian both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Swerve was keeping the pace of the match. Christian, though, hits a frog splash off the top rope on Swerve. Christian then applies a sharpshooter. The referee then throws out Prince Nana. The crowd goes crazy. Killswitch then attacks Swerve. Killswitch then goes for a headbutt but missed and hit Christian. Christian then hits a spear on Swerve for a near fall. The referee then throws out Nick Wayne, Killswitch, and Mother Wayne. Christian's all on his own. Swerve then hits a rolling cutter on Christian in the middle of the ring. Christian then gets up, hits a Killswitch on Swerve for a near fall. Swerve then hits a foot stomp on Christian on the announce table on the outside. Swerve then hits a house call on Christian Cage. Swerve then hits a swerve stomp, and then Swerve hits another house call on Christian Cage, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still AEW World Champion, is Swerve. Hats off to Swerve for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of Double or Nothing. It is Anarchy in the Arena match. It is the Elite versus Team AEW. I thought this match was crazy, man. It was chaotic. One of the crazy things about this match, and it kind of gave me vibes of, I don't know how familiar you guys are with ECW, especially New Jack. It kind of gave you the vibes of New Jack, because when New Jack came out to ECW and he wrestled, the entire time he wrestled, his entrance music was playing. And to me, that was one of the coolest things ever with ECW, especially when it pertained to New Jack, because when New Jack came out and his entrance music was playing, and he was out there doing all those crazy stunts for ECW, man. It was awesome. Rest in peace to New Jack, by the way. But this kind of gave me that same vibe from the days of watching New Jack wrestle in ECW, and then we hear Final Countdown from Bryan Danielson, and you have Team AEW versus the Elite, and it was just a crazy match, a lot of crazy moments. Even so much so where Matt Jackson got on the microphone and was like, hey, turn that music off. It's costing me $20,000. It was just awesome, man. And I said this from the very beginning, too. The EVP, Matt and Nick Jackson, is some of the best Matt and Nick Jackson we've ever got since they've been with AEW. I think the characters that they play out with being EVPs and what they've been doing for the past couple months has been absolutely awesome. And the EVPs, Young Bucks, are absolutely awesome. I think it's a great thing for AEW. I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's kind of a parody of what they play off and everything they've been told, throughout their entire careers. They're this and that, and they kind of bring it to the on-screen stuff. So I think it's awesome, man. But the match itself, the Elite were keeping the pace throughout the match. Young Bucks hit a Meltzer driver on Danielson. Nick Jackson then hits a swanton off the stage onto a table. Perry then attacks Tony Khan. Darby comes out to the ring with a flamethrower, sets Perry on fire. Matt Jackson then hits Dax with an exploding chair. Okada hits a Rainmaker. Darby then is held upside down from his feet. Young Bucks then hits a super kick with having tacks on their shoes. Jack Perry then hits a running knee, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Elite. Hats off to the Elite for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, with everything that happened for Double or Nothing, man, it was a lot to take in. For me personally, it was a lot to take in, and trying to figure out what was going on, what's going to happen next, especially with the Elite. Obviously one of the biggest storylines that AEW had was the Elite versus Tony Khan. And now we get the Anarchy in the Arena match. The Elite end up becoming victorious in that match and picking up the victory. But the biggest takeaway I said about that match was what's going to be next for the Elite after this. And how is this going to fall into place with Tony Khan and the Elite? What are they going to do next? Where's the storyline going to go? And something could happen for Dynamite. We don't know. I'm hoping the story continues, to be honest with you, because they can't just have that one match and be done. And that's the biggest thing I took away from the main event. It was like, okay, well, the Elite had won. What is going to be next now between Tony Khan and the Elite? And hopefully we find that out on Dynamite this week. And I'm hoping we figure out what's going to be next for both Tony Khan and the Elite. All in all, do I think Double or Nothing was a great show? It was a good show. It was definitely a good show. It wasn't the greatest pay-per-view of AEW that they put together, but wasn't the worst. There was definitely some flaws. Like I mentioned to you guys earlier, and I know it's a hot take, but it's just how I feel, my opinion. It's also my show. at the end of the day, I think Willow Nightingale Mercedes Moné match I thought was awful. I thought it was a dog shit match. I think Mercedes Moné got pushed severely in AEW. The ranking system is flawed. I said the same thing about Serena Deeb. And Willow was carrying that match. I don't care who you are, man. Willow was carrying that match for Mercedes Moné. There was definitely some ring rust. There was definitely, hesitation with Mercedes Moné on her end in that matchup. And I have a lot more questions about Mercedes Moné in AEW. When she came into AEW around March, when she debuted in Boston at the TD Garden, was she full-on healthy? Was Tony Khan saying, yeah, I'm healthy, but I kind of want was she telling Tony Khan that, hey, I am healthy, but I want to make sure that I'm ready before I have my first match? And Tony Khan was like, sure, we'll give you 2 months, you cut some promos, stuff like that, and we'll have your first match at Double or Nothing. We don't know. We don't know what Mercedes is doing in AEW and how much pull she really has in AEW. Again, to me, I just think, it's probably one of the hottest takes ever. And like I said, it's probably going to piss a lot of people off, but at the end of the day, it's just how I feel. I think the match between Willow and Mercedes was dog shit. In my honest opinion, I thought it was an awful match, and I think it's something that, I wouldn't even have been mad if Willow retained the belt against Moné that night at Double or Nothing. The biggest thing I took away, the positive that I took away, was Chris Statlander, and the fact that Statlander is now turning heel. Obviously joining Stokely Hathaway, and turns her back on her best friend, Willow Nightingale, and now we're going to get a storyline between Willow and Chris Statlander, with Statlander finally being heel, her first time in AEW, which I'm absolutely all for it. And I like to see, what plays out here between Statlander and Willow moving forward. The other biggest thing was, and one of the matches of the night was Adam Copeland versus Malachi Black. I think that match was a solid matchup. It told a great story. It's unfortunate with the injury to Copeland. Like I told you guys earlier, he one of the spots in that matchup where he fell, jumped off the top of the cage and fell on his legs in that spot in that match. Unfortunately, he ended up fracturing his tibia, and Adam Copeland will be on the shelf for the next 4 to 6 months, so he definitely will be missing the Forbidden Door, and it looks like he will be relinquishing or vacating the TNT title. So it's unfortunate, man. Like I told you guys earlier in the show, that to me, Copeland's on one of his best runs ever, especially in AEW, and I think it's one of his best runs. He's having a better run, in my honest opinion, than the last 2 years he had in WWE, hands down. And it looks like he's excited to be there. He's put on great matches. He's had a hell of a run with the TNT title. It's just unfortunate, and hopefully, he gets healthy. He gets, his leg fixed and stuff like that, and he comes back healthy and comes back to AEW and once again becomes TNT title. So I'm rooting for him to come back, and hopefully everything works out for Copeland and he gets healthy and he comes back to AEW. But like I said, man, there's a lot of stuff going on, and the other things I want to talk about too, especially when it pertains to AEW, is the TV talks between Time Warner and AEW. I know there was a lot of news that came out yesterday, and what I can tell you guys is this. I know AEW and Tony Khan are spending a lot of money from Time Warner due to the fact that Time Warner is no longer in the talks with the NBA. NBA, I think, are going to NBC Universal, and they're no longer going to be showcased on TNT, I think, starting next year. I think this next year or 2 years from now. So I think Tony Khan was hoping for hundreds of millions of dollars, and maybe he got that, maybe he didn't. I know a lot of people were saying all over social media that Tony Khan wasn't really too thrilled with the offer that he received from Time Warner, and then a couple hours later, AEW said that no, Tony Khan didn't hate the offer. So it's all over the place. They're going to be in contract talks, I believe, until July. I believe after July it's over. Maybe they'll push back some more time, but I think July is the deadline between contract talks between Time Warner and AEW. And I know there's some people out there that, this is the end of AEW, and this is where AEW is going to die, and it's about time. If you're one of those fans, man, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. And I mentioned this multiple times in the past before. If you're one of those fans that's saying that AEW needs to die, then you're not a fan of professional wrestling. You're not. Because to me, I told you guys this multiple times before, competition breeds success. And it's healthy for both people on WWE as well as AEW because it gives them options. You don't want to be a WWE? Okay, go over to AEW. You don't want to be an AEW? Go over to WWE. And it's already happened. You look at, just from AEW standpoint, you look at Cody Rhodes. It was one of the biggest losses AEW suffered. And Look what he's doing now with WWE. He's a current Universal Champion. He's a household name for WWE. He's a flagship person for that company. And that company put the title on Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes is putting that company on his back. And he's done a hell of a job since he's been with WWE, hands down. Then you look at someone else like Jade Cargill, where Jade Cargill came into WWE as a powerhouse and made a name for himself over in AEW with that undefeated streak. And this was all help from Tony Khan. So you also had to praise Tony Khan as well. Even CM Punk. CM Punk, if it wasn't for Tony Khan, we don't know what CM Punk would be doing or if he would ever re-sign with WWE. It's thanks to Tony Khan to bring CM Punk back into wrestling. So you got to give credit where credit's due. So with that being said, I don't know what Time Warner is going to be doing with AEW. The biggest thing that I will say with this, and when it pertains to the TV rights deal, and I mentioned this multiple times before, and I'll keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, that Tony Khan and Time Warner need to entertain the idea of possibly AEW having a spot on HBO Max, a part of a streaming deal. They have the catalog. They've been around now for 5 years. They have a decent catalog right now for AEW. You put the pay-per-views on HBO Max as well, maybe some behind-the-scenes shows or something like that. You can really build stuff on HBO Max for AEW, and I think that's something that Tony Khan and AEW and Time Warner really need to entertain, not only for themselves, but for the fans as well. The other thing, too, is, I know a lot of people were talking about Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch supposedly had her last match with WWE Monday night. And a lot of people were like, oh, she's going right to AEW. I don't know. I know somebody said that, she was going to entertain the idea, but wasn't going there 100%. A lot of people are saying that she's going to take some time off just because she wants time just to, take a hiatus, take a sabbatical for a little while. So, I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying that Becky Lynch is going to AEW. I'm not saying that. I'd be very surprised if she does. I think Becky Lynch is just taking some time off. But, all in all, Double or Nothing, like I told you guys before, it wasn't a bad show. It wasn't an awful show. It wasn't, I don't think it lived up to the hype. If there was any hype to the show, it just wasn't there. I'm not saying the show was bad. It's just there was no storylines really that got you invested leading into the show, maybe besides Malachi Black and Adam Copeland, in my honest opinion. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Double or Nothing. I hope you guys are out there staying